They say I am a fool. When my Lord Lang was struggling, I never left his side. But now that he holds a high position, I am determined to leave. Hearing this, I can only smile faintly. My Lord Lang's gratitude towards me is because I stood by him when he was still lowly. But I am not the kind of person who relies on favors to seek repayment. I packed my belongings, preparing to return to my hometown. Unexpectedly, he cornered me against the wall, his eyes red, his voice hoarse as he asked, "Have you really never had any feelings for me?" In the capital, I opened a baozi shop, living with a young boy around 13 or 14 and a handsome young man. However, only I found him handsome. Others criticized him for being shabby and avoided him as much as possible. However, only I found him handsome. Others criticized him for being shabby and avoided him as much as possible. My hometown is in Engiptan. Engiptan suffers from floods all year round, making it impossible for the people to live peacefully. But one day, a skilled official came here to manage the water, spending 3 years to repair the canal system. Since then, the people of Engiptan have had hope, and I was just a little maid responsible for cleaning in the household of that water management official, Mr. Ta. The steward in the household said, "The Ta family has collapsed. Mr. Ta has also been implicated. It seems that he will no longer be able to manage the water in Engiptan." The Ta family was once a prestigious clan in the capital, and Mr. Ta's sister, Lady Ta, was even a consort of the current Emperor Huang. He was originally a young nobleman, but he was not afraid of hardship and stubbornly relied on his own abilities to build his career, which is why he came to Engiptan, a place that suffers from floods all year round. At first, I thought he was just a young and impulsive boy, but unexpectedly, after 3 years in office, he worked diligently, tirelessly day and night. The day he arrived, he was a young man with clear eyes, indifferent to the bustling city, solely focused on the suffering common people. How could someone so devoted be implicated? I couldn't help but worry. I was best at making baozi, and the Grand Eunuch Song, who came to deliver orders, also loved to eat them. He said my meat-filled baozi tasted just like the food he had when he was young. Therefore, he rewarded me with quite a bit of silver. I divided the silver into 3 parts. 1 part for Uncle Wang, the steward who introduced me to the kitchen. 1 part one kept, and the remaining part one gave to a young eunuch who accompanied the Grand Eunuch Song. This young eunuch was very young. After receiving the silver, he ate my baozi while chatting with me. It turned out that Lady Ta in the palace was discovered using sorcery to curse the empress and the crown prince. Meanwhile, in the previous court, there was a censor who submitted a memorial accusing the head of the Ta family of embezzlement and having ulterior motives. The evidence was very solid and undeniable. Lady Ta was imprisoned in the cold palace, and the Prince 5 she bore was also exiled to Shaanxi. All the men in the Ta family were stripped of their positions. This time, Mr. Ta was summoned back to the capital, fearing that the chances of survival were slim. Slim chances of survival? Before leaving, that young eunuch even made a gesture of cutting his throat at me. But he is a good official. If he were to die in Engiptan, the people here would bury him and honor him. But what about the capital? Would the people in the capital know he was a good man? Would they give him a proper burial? I couldn't rest easy. Therefore, I decided to quietly follow the group and go to the capital with him. I couldn't rest easy. Therefore, I decided to quietly follow the group and go to the capital with him. If the Emperor Huang were to execute him, then I would bury him. I have no parents nor siblings. Alone, solitary. What is there to fear? Having received a favor from him, I must repay it. After being a maid for 3 years in the Ta household, I had saved up a bit of silver. Along with the reward from the Grand Eunuch, I would surely have a way to survive in the capital. Uncle Wang, the steward in the household, was an old acquaintance of my father. Over the years, he has taken great care of me. If it weren't for him, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to work as a maid in Mr. Ta's household. Seeing my determination to go to the capital, he couldn't help but advise me, "Girl, the outside world is strange and unfamiliar. It's better not to go." He was old, his back slightly hunched, and his eyes were cloudy. Yet in those eyes was still a deep concern. My father passed away many years ago, and no one had looked at me with such eyes for a long time. I sat down on the steps and sighed softly. "Uncle Wang, please don't advise me anymore. If it weren't for him, I would have perished in the Chang River years ago." If I were to lose my life now, it would be for him. Consider it my way of repaying this favor. Uncle Wang stopped advising me. He prepared a bundle for me, saying that Aunt Wang had sewn a set of clothes and prepared some dry rations for me. On the way, I opened the bundle to take a look. Besides the clothes and rations as he mentioned, there was also a bag of silver hidden inside, even more than what I had left for him. I originally intended to leave without any burdens, but what they did made me want to cry. I knelt by the roadside, bowing my head towards Engip Tan. The young eunuch came over, curiously asking, "Why are you kneeling?" This young eunuch, named Joy Li, was the adopted son of the Grand Eunuch who delivered the orders. No corresponding translation found. This young eunuch, named Joy Li, was the adopted son of the Grand Eunuch who delivered the orders. Throughout the journey, I followed behind the soldiers escorting us. Although weary from the journey, I was fortunate to remain safe. Joy Li was lively and often ran back to chat with me. He said that the Grand Eunuch was not an ordinary person, but a close eunuch to the Emperor Huang, named Eunuch Song. Mr. Ta's full name is Ta Heian. Although he is the younger brother of Lady Ta, he is actually a year younger than the Prince Five she bore. No one expected that a young nobleman born in luxury could achieve such great accomplishments. When he was young, Ta Heian grew up in the palace with the Prince Five. In his childhood, he loved to run around the Emperor Huang's feet. Clearly the other princes did not dare, but he was bold as a lion. The Emperor Huang was very fond of him and took him everywhere. Whenever he got tired playing, he would rest his head on the Emperor Huang's table and sleep. The Emperor Huang believed that the head of the Ta family was corrupt, forming cliques and buying positions. But to say that the young lord he had seen since childhood was also like that, he would not believe it. He would not believe it. However, the matters of the Ta family were too large to be ignored. Even if Ta Heian was not involved, he could not escape. The Emperor Huang feared that officials with grievances against the Ta family would take the opportunity to harm him, worried that he could not return to the capital safely, so he personally sent Eunuch Song to escort him. Eunuch Song had witnessed Ta Heian grow up and had some connections with him. Along the way, he repeatedly encouraged and comforted him, never making things difficult for him. I also benefited a bit from this. Eunuch Song felt I was loyal, so when we rested, he ordered Joy Li to bring me hot food. Gradually, Joy Li and I became closer. Joy Li grumbled, "You really are a mute. If my adoptive father hadn't said you were a good person, I wouldn't have bothered with you." I replied lightly, "Sorry, I just want to speak less and save my strength for the journey." Joy Li sat in the carriage with Eunuch Song. He would only get down to walk when his legs got tired from sitting too long. As for me, I could only follow behind the group, not daring to slack off. Joy Li wasn't really angry and continued to chat. "Yesterday I spoke with Mr. Ta. He said he didn't know your name." "Aha! How could he know?" "Since he wasn't discouraged and continued. Don't you feel sad? You are wholeheartedly devoted to Mr. Lord Ta, yet he doesn't even remember your name. Don't you feel sad? You are wholeheartedly devoted to Mr. Lord Ta, yet he doesn't even remember your name. You are wholeheartedly devoted to Mr. Lord Ta, yet he doesn't even remember your name. How could he know?" Since the first day he began managing the water, Ta Heian worked day and night. If he wasn't at the canals, he was buried in a study. When hungry, he would only eat a piece of steamed bun with pickled vegetables. When tired, he would lay a mat on the ground to sleep. Don't mention me. I fear even he doesn't know which way his room faces. Joy Li stared at me, blinking. I told him your name is Lily Lee. He said he would remember it well. Are you happy? I said without changing my expression. Happy. Joy Li scratched his head, muttering, "You really are the strangest woman I've ever met." I looked at him, a 13 or 14-year-old boy, and smiled slightly. "How many women have you met?" Joy Li immediately perked up. "Don't underestimate me. In the palace, there are countless concubines, each one like a celestial maiden descending to earth." He glanced at me and clicked his tongue. "Lord Ta also grew up in the palace. What beauty has he not seen? Look at yourself, so thin you're practically just bones. No wonder he doesn't even remember your name." Joy Li lowered his voice, pretending to be mysterious. "In the palace, if a concubine wants to win over the emperor, they must offer silver to my father to speak well of them in front of him. But I feel sorry for you, so I'll help you say a few good words to Lord Ta." I won't take your silver, but you must remember my kindness in your heart. Yes, I remember. My tone remained calm, but the moment I spoke another word, Joy Lee's eyes crinkled with a smile. He had a round face, porcelain white like a doll, and whenever he smiled, his eyes turned into a lovely curve. He said that after returning to the palace, he would have to become mute. There, speaking too much or speaking wrongly could cost one their head. He recounted the magnificent palace, the luxurious harem, where all the concubines were celestial maidens come down to earth. But I also heard, beneath that gilded palace floor, there were countless cries of white bones lamenting. Finally, we arrived. Joy looked at me and softly said, Lily Lai, I have to go back now. His eyes were red, and his porcelain white nose was flushed. He looked just like a porcelain doll feeling wrong. Finally, we arrived. Joy looked at me and softly said, Lily Lai, I have to go back now. His eyes were red, and his porcelain white nose was flushed. He looked just like a porcelain doll feeling wrong. Joy was only 14 this year. I was 3 years older and a head taller than him. I wanted to comfort him, but I truly didn't know what to say. After all, if he didn't return to the palace, where could he go? Compared to living alone, at least he had eunuch Song to care for him. Joy held back his tears and asked, Lily Lai, we're good friends, right? I didn't know what he meant by good friends. Perhaps, in the palace, no one wanted to hear a little eunuch named Joy Lee chatter on, or maybe he couldn't chatter with anyone because he wanted to keep his life. Perhaps, in the palace, no one wanted to hear a little eunuch named Joy Lee chatter on, or maybe he couldn't chatter with anyone because he wanted to keep his life. I looked at Joy Lee and saw him biting his lips tightly, trying hard not to cry. I thought for a moment, then nodded vigorously and said seriously, Yes, we are good friends. Yes, we are good friends. Hearing my answer was like someone opening a dam in front of him. His eyes immediately glistened, and tears flowed like a flood down the Chong River. He threw himself into my arms, crying uncontrollably. I took out my handkerchief, intending to help him wipe his tears. But looking at my only embroidered handkerchief, I felt a bit reluctant. So I tucked it back into my sleeve, turned around, pulled him closer, and used my dirty sleeve to wipe his face. His nose was running, his eyes were brimming with tears, and there was also golden dust stuck to my sleeve. His face immediately became a mess. Perhaps I hadn't wiped evenly and accidentally brushed his mouth. He immediately spit twice, continuously spitting on the ground. Afi! Afi! You're such a fool. Joy Lee threw me a safety charm, saying it was made by his mother before he entered the palace. He said his mother loved him dearly, but was too poor to raise him. He mentioned that the matter of the Lord Ta family was very serious, and it would be hard to overturn the verdict, advising me not to cling to Ta Han any longer. Joy Lee spoke very seriously, and I knew he was genuinely advising me, but I had already prepared myself for the worst. If the Lord Ta family could overturn the verdict, that would be best. If not, I still wanted to see him buried properly with my own eyes. He couldn't be thrown into a mass grave, gnawed on by insects, or torn apart by stray dogs. That absolutely could not happen. Looking at my determined gaze, Joy Lee sighed and said helplessly, You really are a good person. I shook my head. I wasn't. Ta Han was the good person. Joy Lee said he didn't know much about court affairs. But if the Lord Ta family fell, many officials would be implicated, and it certainly couldn't be resolved overnight. But if the Lord Ta family fell, many officials would be implicated, and it certainly couldn't be resolved overnight. I was just a lonely woman. It would be better to find a temporary place to wait for the outcome. It could take a month for news, or perhaps 3 months without any. He told me to prepare for a long wait. Joy Lee had to return to the palace. He looked at me, his eyes full of worry. I knew that even though we had only just met, he genuinely cared for me. Though I felt regret, I still took it out. The deep palace was vast. He had given me a safety charm, and I should leave him a keepsake as well. I feared that this farewell might mean we would never meet again. And I should leave him a keepsake as well. I feared that this farewell might mean we would never meet again. Before entering the palace, Ta Han wanted to see me once. On the way, the official's carriage was ahead, and I quietly followed behind, neither too close nor too far. Joy Lee once said he was so worried about his family that he had lost weight. I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, but now I saw it. He stood before me, tall and thin, his complexion pale, even thinner than when he was digging rivers and repairing dikes. His cheeks were hollow, his eyes sunken, but his skin was whiter than before. Seeing his haggard appearance, I suddenly felt uncomfortable. Why did someone like him have to suffer like this? He furrowed his brows and looked at me. At that moment, I was covered in dust, my clothes torn in several places, looking no different from a beggar. But I didn't see anything wrong. He opened his mouth. His voice was still pleasant, but it was extremely cold. Thank you for following me all the way. I have nothing to repay you. I raised my head and looked straight into his eyes. You don't need to repay me. This is what I should do. He continued. I have asked Joy Lee to advise you many times, but you still refuse to go back. Now I'm advising you myself. Court affairs are not something a maid like you can understand. Don't interfere anymore. In the capital, how many high-ranking officials are there? Life is as insignificant to them as an ant. If you follow me, you might not even have anyone to seek justice for you. It's still not too late to turn back now. Life is as cheap as grass in the capital. Where isn't it like that? The powerful are arrogant everywhere, treating the lives of commoners as lighter than a feather. I had long stopped being afraid. Whatever he said didn't move me. I calmly replied, I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid. I don't understand court affairs, but I know you are a good official. If heaven has no eyes and allows someone like you to be wrongfully accused and executed, at the very least, there should be someone to help you collect your body so that you can be buried properly. Ta Han's brows furrowed even tighter. He smiled bitterly and simply said, If you are so determined, then I'll trouble you. If you are so determined, then I'll trouble you. I nodded vigorously, solemnly promising, You can rest assured, my lord. You can rest assured, my lord. After saying that, I stood and watched him leave. Groups of people were entering the palace one after another. At this moment, Joy Lee deliberately slowed down. Can't you say a few nicer words? You traveled thousands of miles just to worry about someone's burial? If Lord talkin' like you, I'll immediately cut off my head and offer it to you. After hearing Joy Lee's words, I decided to find a temporary place to stay. Perhaps I was still lucky, finding a small courtyard that wasn't too remote, and the rent was very cheap. However, this place had once been occupied by someone. The landlord was a straightforward person. He candidly told me that this courtyard had previously been rented by a family, but the mother-in-law was very cruel because the daughter-in-law couldn't bear children. She unilaterally took a concubine for her son. After that, the mother-in-law and the concubine tortured the daughter-in-law in every way possible. Initially, despite the mother-in-law's difficulties, the couple still loved each other very much. But later, the concubine seduced the husband, causing him to change, and even to beat his rightful wife. In the end, the daughter-in-law couldn't bear it any longer. She drugged the food, killing her husband, mother-in-law, and the concubine. But later, the concubine seduced the husband, causing him to change, and even to beat his rightful wife. In the end, the daughter-in-law couldn't bear it any longer. She drugged the food, killing her husband, mother-in-law, and the concubine. When the officials arrived, she sat on the ground, laughing and talking like a madwoman, mumbling. For him, I severed ties with my birth family, spent all my money to help him. What did I get in return? Finally, she smashed her head against the wall and committed suicide. Since then, people have spread rumors that this place has a vengeful spirit, and moreover, it was a case of killing a husband and mother-in-law, an act of great filial impiety. No one dared to rent this courtyard anymore. Gradually, it became a dilapidated house. I looked at the stained walls, which showed signs of having been cleaned. Surely that was where she smashed her head to commit suicide. How tragic! How tragic! The host inquired about my background, and upon realizing I was a good person, I spoke the truth. I recounted that in Engipton, there was a very capable water management official, but I feared he would be punished. I had come here to arrange his funeral. This courtyard had its own taboos, and what I intended to do was not a good omen. I worried the host would think I was unlucky and refuse to rent me a room. To my surprise, The host merely sighed and said, "You are indeed a person of loyalty. Let's consider this a fateful meeting. I do not need rent, but there is one condition. After you finish your business, you must stay here for a full year. This way, the place will have some human presence and vitality. After a year, whether you wish to leave or stay is up to you. If you want to continue renting, we will calculate the market price." I happily agreed and immediately signed a contract with the host. It included a clause stating that if I did not stay for a full year, I would have to compensate 10 taels of silver. I looked at the weeds growing all over the yard and rolled up my sleeves. It seemed this would be a significant undertaking. I tidied up a room that was fit for sleeping and then lay down to rest. The starry sky loomed above, and my body felt utterly exhausted. For several days, I went out to buy some supplies and gradually cleaned up the courtyard, making it look much neater. The courtyard had 3 rooms: the main hall, the east wing, and the west wing. The courtyard had 3 rooms: the main hall, the east wing, and the west wing. I locked the main hall and the west wing, only sleeping in the east wing. Every day, I went to the palace gate, waiting for an hour, hoping to catch a glimpse of Ta Han. The host also promised to keep an eye out for news and would inform me immediately if anything came up. After all, I was unfamiliar with this place and didn't know where to gather information. One day, I wore the new clothes that Aunt Vong had sewn for me while washing my old outfit in the yard. The host hurried in, panting, "Miss, there's news. Miss, there's news." I immediately stood up. "What news?" The host gasped for breath and said, "Lady Ta has been stripped of her position. The entire Ta family has been punished." "Why?" The host hurried in, panting, "Miss, there's news. Lady Ta has been stripped of her position. The entire Ta family has been punished, with all members facing execution, except for the young Master Ta, who has been spared. However, he will be executed in the fall." My hands trembled, and my voice became hoarse. "What about Ta Han?" "Go. Let's head to Zhu Ke Tian Hai and find out." I didn't have time to lock the door. I just told the host briefly before rushing out. I didn't know whether to feel happy or sad. Happy that a good official wasn't punished, but his entire family was doomed. How would he survive? His entire family was doomed. How would he survive? The streets were crowded, and I weaved through the throngs, desperately searching for that familiar figure. After running around for 2 hours, I wandered through several narrow alleys. My new clothes were drenched in sweat. Finally, I saw him. His hair was disheveled, his white inner robe was tattered, and he was barefoot, leaning against the wall in a deep alley, looking utterly hopeless. I didn't know how to comfort him, or what to say to ease his heart. I simply squatted in front of him and softly said, "Come with me, come with me." He slowly turned his eyes to me, his gaze bloodshot. In just a few days, he had become so thin that his cheeks were sunken. He was like a soulless puppet, allowing me to take his hand and lead him step by step back to the small courtyard. Once we arrived, he lay on the bed, refusing to eat, drink, or sleep. He just stared wide-eyed at the ceiling. I cooked a pot of plain porridge. He had to eat something, otherwise he would perish like this. He refused to eat, so I pinched his mouth open and poured the porridge in. After all, I had the strength. It wasn't too difficult. He remained trapped in despair for 7 days. Meanwhile, I looked at the silver in my hand and felt, sitting idle like this wasn't right. "Young master, get up and eat something." Ta Han glanced at me and slowly said, "You should go. I can't survive and you don't need to bury me anymore." I wasn't good at comforting others, nor did I know how to console Ta Han. I only knew he was in great pain. Even if he didn't need a burial anymore, I still wanted to be by his side. Finally, the young master is willing to speak. Finally, the young master is willing to speak. Ta Han sat up, leaning against the bedpost. "Yes, I'm fine. You should go back home. I can't survive, and you don't need to bury me anymore." I ignored his words, took out a pouch of silver from my bosom, and held it out to him. "Young master, your family is in prison. If you want to see them, you'll need to spend some silver." "Young master, your family is in prison. If you want to see them, you'll need to spend some silver." I kept 5 taels for myself and handed him the remaining 30 taels. In this era, there were too many things that required silver. Although this amount wasn't much, I couldn't help him in any other way, so I could only do this. Ta Han looked at the silver in his hand, then at me, his voice soft. I have nothing to repay you. I have nothing to repay you. I don't need you to repay me. I smiled gently. I just regret not being able to help more. Please eat something first. I'll come back to tidy up later. The rain and wind will eventually pass. Everything will be all right. I was still a small vendor wandering the streets, selling buns to make a living. But Ta-Hayan had never visited his family. He used the silver I gave him to buy wine, drowning himself in drunkenness day after day. Next door lived an old woman named Aunt Vong, the most talkative person in the neighborhood. Every day, she gathered at the alley's entrance to gossip about Ta-Hayan. I had never liked her, yet she shamelessly helped herself to my buns while chatting. Chewing on a bun, she laughed heartily. Kid, your skills are really not bad. Kid, your skills are really not bad. I ignored her and focused on my work, but she continued to chatter on. You may not be very beautiful, but you are truly capable. I still paid her no mind, hoping she would tire of talking and leave. To my surprise, she became even more animated. Kid, the person in your house has lost all will to live. Even though he was once a noble, he probably won't amount to anything in the future. You keep working hard to make money, while he just drinks all day. You can't pin your future on him. In business, the most important thing is to maintain harmony for prosperity. I could tolerate her criticism of me, but to speak ill of the young master right in front of me, that was unforgivable. My face turned sour, yet she shamelessly picked up another bun and continued munching. Kid, I have a grandson, though he's not very handsome. You and he would make a good match. He's a sensible person who knows how to care for others. How about I arrange a meeting for the two of you? She began to boast about her grandson, praising him to the skies. I knew that guy. His surname was Vong, but I couldn't remember his first name. I only knew everyone called him Mr. Vong. He had a face full of pimples, was lazy all day, and was just a petty thug. I smiled faintly, pretending to be very shy, and deliberately spoke loudly for the whole neighborhood to hear. Aunt Vong, your grandson is so good. I'm afraid I'm not worthy. But your daughter is also of marrying age. How about our two families become in-laws? Aunt Vong was immediately taken aback. I didn't give her a chance to respond and continued loudly. Aunt Vong, today you've eaten 3 buns from my yard. Now you're taking 4 more. I'm just a small vendor selling buns, so I'll give you a discount. It'll be a total of 5 won. Several women passing by immediately chimed in. Aunt Vong, if your grandson is that good, why not let him be your son-in-law? That's right. When will you invite us to the wedding feast? Aunt Vong's face turned pale, and she angrily waved her hand, wanting to leave. An old lady shouted quickly, Hey, you haven't paid for those buns yet. Aunt Vong tightened her grip on the bag of buns, grumbling, I didn't bring any money. I'll pay you tomorrow. After saying that, she ran off. It seemed that for a long time to come, she wouldn't dare to show her face around here. Every day, I carried buns, weaving through the alleys to sell them. Thanks to the delicious and affordable buns, my business thrived. Once I sold out, I planned to stop by the medicine shop to buy some hangover remedy for Ta-Hayan. Unexpectedly, on the way, I ran into Joy Lee. He was sitting by the roadside, crying with a face as wrinkled as a bun, his eyes swollen. I felt helpless as I rolled up my sleeves to wipe his face. He pushed me away in disgust, scolding, You idiot! You idiot! I sat down next to him and asked, What's wrong? What's wrong? Joy Lee looked dejected, his eyes red. My aunt treats my little brother poorly. I've sent all my allowance to them, yet they still mistreat him. He cried pitifully, telling his story with sincerity. For some reason, I found myself shedding tears as well. The tears streamed down my face, leaving 2 faint white streaks. Joy Lee noticed and asked in confusion, Why are your tears so clear? I froze, suddenly remembering that I had put something on my face. With the water, it must have started to smudge. I quickly changed the subject and asked him, So, what do you plan to do in the future? Joy Lee didn't press further, just shook his head sadly. I don't know. But I can't let my little brother come to the palace and become a eunuch. Indeed, if there were a way out, who would want to enter the palace? Joy Lee saw my empty basket and whined for a bun. I regretfully said, I sold out today. Next time you come, I'll save some for you. Joy Lee looked even more dejected, sobbing, I can't protect my little brother. I feel ashamed facing our ancestors. Now, I can't even have a bun to eat. A plump, white dough ball sat next to me, crying with a pout, and I couldn't bear to comfort him. So, I softened my tone to reassure him and told him a plump, white dough ball sat next to me, crying with a pout, and I couldn't bear to comfort him. So, I softened my tone to reassure him and told him my address. I instructed, "Next time you take a day off, just come find me." From that day on, I started saving a few buns in the steamer. I only told Joy Lee the address but forgot to ask when he would come. So, I didn't dare leave the steamer empty. I set aside a portion every day. If he didn't come that day, I would steam the buns again the next morning to eat, then make a new batch for him. However, I didn't expect Joy Lee to come so quickly. Moreover, he brought a special gift. On that day, after selling all the buns, I returned home. As soon as I stepped into the yard, I saw 3 people glaring at each other, surrounding a stone table. How strange. Today, the gentleman was sober, but his face clearly showed anger as he glared at Joy Lee. Joy Lee opened his big round eyes, the corners slightly drooping, looking both innocent and pitiful. Next to him was a smaller version, a boy who looked just like him, also gazing at me with innocent eyes. Upon seeing me return, Joy Lee immediately jumped into my arms, his voice full of grievance. "Why are you back now? I can't stand that Tara guy. He's so fierce." Caught off guard by his sudden embrace, I felt a bit flustered. "You don't know, when you weren't here, that Tara guy was really fierce." Caught off guard by his sudden embrace, I felt a bit flustered. Although Joy Lee and I had some rapport, I never thought our relationship was this close. Remembering he was a eunuch, I didn't push him away. The smaller boy timidly followed, mumbling, "Hello, sister." I was taken aback. Was I under some spell, or was this situation just too bizarre? Tara Ta Han snorted coldly and turned to walk straight into the room, clearly angry. I gently patted Joy Lee's back, signaling that the gentleman had gone inside, and he could let go now. Joy Lee pouted, looking as if he had been terribly wronged. "You don't know, when you weren't here, that Tara guy was really fierce." Seeing his pitiful expression, I truly couldn't bring myself to scold him. Joy Lee pushed the boy beside him forward. "This is my little brother, Gillian Quinn." I bent down to look at the boy, around 8 or 9 years old, with a face that resembled Joy Lee's exactly, just with darker skin. It made sense. Children of farmers often had a bit of tan. I gently pinched the boy's cheek and smiled. "Wait here while I get some buns for the two of you." Joy Lee and Gillian Quinn each grabbed a bun and bit into them eagerly. Gillian Quinn smiled with his eyes squinted, happily praising, "Sister, your buns are so delicious. The two of them, one big and one small, ate and laughed, looking incredibly adorable, making me feel hungry as well. At that moment, Joy Lee suddenly asked, "Do you like Gillian Quinn?" The abrupt question caught me off guard, and I instinctively replied, Yes. Who wouldn't like such a well-behaved and adorable child? Joy Lee's expression turned serious as he said to Gillian Quinn, "Gillian Quinn, go kneel and bow to your sister." The boy obediently put down his bun and immediately knelt before me, bowing his head loudly. I was astonished and hurried to help him up, but Joy Lee knelt down as well. I turned around and grabbed the collar of his shirt to pull him up. "What's going on? Why are you kneeling? What's going on? Why are you kneeling? What's going on? Why are you kneeling?" Joy Lee pouted, his eyes glistening with tears, about to cry. "Sister, please help me take care of Gillian Quinn. I firmly refused. No. Even though I couldn't withstand Joy Lee's whining, I couldn't agree. After all, I still wanted to follow the gentleman. As long as he was alive, I wouldn't leave. If he stayed in the capital, I could help Joy Lee take care of Gillian Quinn. But I couldn't make decisions on behalf of the gentleman. He seemed trapped in a nightmare. After waking up, where would he go? And how could I know better than him? Tears rolled down Joy Lee's cheeks like a broken string of pearls. His voice choked with sobs. Why Don't I have anyone to rely on?
Why?
Don't I have anyone to rely on? Besides my adoptive father. You're all I have. I lowered my head, not daring to look him in the eye. Between you and me, we are just passing acquaintances. Joy Lee staggered back 2 steps, his eyes wide in disbelief. Passing acquaintances? So in your heart, I'm just a passerby. Even the piece not my mother personally tied, I gave to you, and all I get in return is a passing acquaintance from you? His face was filled with disappointment, and tears fell even more. I couldn't bear this responsibility and had to speak even more decisively. But seeing Joy Lee cry so heartbreakingly, I still felt a pang of reluctance. I reached out to wipe his tears, but he forcefully swatted my hand away and turned to run. I wanted to chase after him, but behind me, Nina Quinn tugged at my sleeve. Sister, don't abandon me. Sister, don't abandon me. I sighed. How could I want to abandon him? It's just that I couldn't even take care of myself. How could I look after someone else? The night was late, but Joy Lee still hadn't returned. Nina Quinn was a well-behaved child, not bothering me at all. He quietly bent down to clear the weeds in the yard. His small figure busily worked in the corner of the yard. Surely, he had endured many grievances from a young age, living under someone else's roof, which is why he understood things so early. I initially planned to be tough and ignore this child, but I truly wasn't heartless. I waved for Nina Quinn to come over, scooped a basin of warm water, and gently wiped his face. Nina Quinn, being with me might not be better than staying with your Auntie Took. One day, I might leave this place. Nina Quinn raised a small face, seriously saying, Brother said you are a very good person. He told me to follow you well. Wherever you go, I will go. Brother said you are a very good person. He told me to follow you well. Wherever you go, I will go. I sighed. Joy Lee intentionally left him here. Could I really explain clearly to a child? I could only tidy up the West Chamber and tell Nina Quinn, from now on, you can stay here. From now on, you can stay here. Nina Quinn took out a pouch of silver from his chest and handed it to me. Brother said that you work hard selling buns every day. He said this money is for you to run a shop, so you don't have to suffer in the sun and rain anymore. I shook my head to refuse. You keep this silver. I don't know how long I'll be in the capital, and I don't plan to open a shop. Even though I refused, Nina Quinn insisted on shoving the pouch of silver into my hand. I didn't accept it, and he looked at me with determined eyes, as if I didn't take it, he wouldn't give up.